All right. Hello, howdy, hi, and a big warm welcome from starting to unfortunately turn into fall, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. My name is Curtis Dohaniak, and I am a product expert with Polaris. And today I am joined by Kamaraj, and we are going to be your guides and hosts on our feature webinar presentation about Polaris's brand new product, the self driving PPM, that is going to deliver harmony with smart decisions. So here is a quick look at our agenda before we get too fast into the webinar today. First, we're going to take a look at why organizations will need a PPM solution. Then we're going to do a quick glance at our overview of what our Polaris PPM looks like. Afterwards, Kamaraj is going to guide us to the platform with a demo. Then we will look at some customer examples and the ROIs that came from those transformations. And finally, we will finish off with a Q&A with you folks. So here's a couple of notes of housekeeping before we continue. Throughout this presentation, you will be on mute, but don't worry. If you have any burning questions that pop into your brain at any point in time, feel free to submit them in the question box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. So don't feel like we're ignoring you if we don't answer them right away. It's just best to save everything for the end. Sometimes the questions get answered during the webinar, and it just allows us to keep the flow going. That being said, maybe a little bit later you're sitting down to watch some TV or having a coffee, and for some strange reason, Polaris pops into your brain. Yes, the mind works in many mysterious ways. That is okay too. You can always drop us a line, and there will be someone that will get back to you as soon as possible. So, for project based organizations, there are two critical success factors. And we want every single organization to be like these folks, happy in the boardroom, arms raised in victory, we're successful. And there are some things that you really need to focus on. One is you need projects and resources to reflect strategic priorities. Now, all too often, we maybe in the past have experienced this, that you look at your huge list of resources available, and then you have your list of projects, and you're just struggling to find someone with open availability, and trying to sort through everyone's skills can be difficult. So you want to make sure not only are you finding someone with open availability, but you want someone whose skills align with this project's priorities, and you want to make sure you are being the most strategic about how you assign these resources. And to be successful, you also need real time, accurate information on the status of things like your projects and your resources and costs. And you need to optimize these plans and consistently keep them on track so you can continue to work away and worry less about the planning and more about the projects. And this can be difficult for a number of reasons. One is we have our data scattered across many different platforms. We have multiple systems, and when you're trying to import this data and scan through all these different platforms and try to understand and make word of it, it can be so hard. It can be inaccurate, it can be late, it can be not up to date. And when everything doesn't connect with each other, you do not have that single source of information that you need to make those big decisions. So this is why we have created Polaris. It is the world's first self-driving PPM, and it will deliver harmony with smart decisions. So Polaris acts like the warm blanket around all of your projects. It keeps those strategic priorities and that project's execution in line. And regardless of what platforms you're using, we're making sure all of your data is housed in one place. We're going to give you that project portfolio resource and cost information, and we are going to allow you to ensure that strategic alignment with ease. And all this is done within Polaris without any need for retooling. And when we talk about self driving, we're talking about this swift motion of taking all of your data, analyzing it, and then in turn giving you the recommendations you need to make those big decisions. So, like a self driving car, you can set it into drive and it'll take you where you need to go. And this is all possible due to smart beats. And smart beats are live data. We are going to harvest smart beat information, whether it be from your desktop, your mobile app, or as you can see, we also connect with other tools such as Slack, Asana, Microsoft Projects. And this ensures that all of your data is in one place. And not only is it in one place, but it is live. So you have that constant feed of information so you're easily able to stay on top of things. We want you to be proactive and not reactive. And if you're using stale data, then you're fixing fires that started weeks ago, and then while you're fixing those old fires, new ones are starting, and that is what we want to avoid entirely. So we're going to give you that single source of truth you need to understand everything that is happening within every single project in your organization. And to allow you to understand this, we are going to give you mission controls. And these mission controls are a live feed of all of your data, and they are function based. We know within organizations, you have tons of different roles. There's portfolio leaders, BU leaders, PMO and project leaders, resource leaders, and finance leaders. And while they are all using data for different things, what doesn't change is that they need this data to be consistent and accurate and easy to access. So we create harmony within your organization with these mission controls. And these mission controls are real-time proactive alerts, and they're exception based. So you're not getting inundated with all these business as usual alerts, and you're also not going to be inundated with irrelevant information. Mission controls are tailored to every single role, and they are going to give you that information you need to take action on a daily basis. And this all leads to live insights, and live insights come from our systems analysis of the data. We're going to take all the information that you put into it, and then we're going to take that analysis and then turn it into recommendations. So you are so easily able to make those big decisions. And so you've heard the preamble, you've seen the PowerPoint, but everyone is here for the demo. I know Kamaraj is pretty excited to show you guys what our platform looks like. And today in our demo, we're going to show you all of Polaris's capabilities. We are going to take a look at governance, analytics, resources, portfolio management, projects, time, and costs. So without further ado, I'm going to pass things off to Kamaraj, and he is going to show you the platform in action.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Curtis. Am I audible to everyone? Curtis, could you please confirm that?
Yeah, you are audible. You're good to go.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Curtis. I'm super excited, as Curtis mentioned, that I'll be demonstrating how Polaris PPM is going to work, right? So before doing that, I just want to give a quick round of introduction about myself. Yes, I work with Replicon as a solutions engineer and also I'm a project practitioner. Right, based on my experience, I'm going to give you a walkthrough how Polaris PPM is going to align to your organization's requirements. Right, for instance, your organization has strategic objectives that needs to be executed, and most of the times you cannot find the information that you would require to deliver these projects on time and within budget, right? So the data you might have or you receive maybe in stale or it could be inaccurate, and making business decisions based on this information impacts your ability to deliver the projects on time, right? So in order to align with organization objectives, we need to make sure we are maximizing resource utilization, productivity, and also all this should happen while we are minimizing the cost, and we should be able to accurately account that to the capital or the operational expenditures. And then Polaris PPM does provides a single source of truth, eliminating all data silos with all the available metrics at your fingertips in real time. And I'm sure we are not going to be bombarding you with useless information. Perhaps we are going to expose you the mission control data to help provide actionable insights where you get the deep analysis on your ongoing projects, and we do provide the recommendations and reduce noise as well. Well, Polaris PPM centralizes all your strategic portfolios and projects, including the costs and budgets, and manage them on real time with the actuals, so that you have a single source of truth and single screen, where you understand all the ongoing engagements and help ensure these are delivered on time and within budget. As we are talking about the mission control, now let's take a quick look at how the mission control actually works. So Polaris PPM provides a different mission control view for the different business leaders within the organization. Whereas, for an example, project managers will be able to understand or have an understanding, or can monitor all the engagements across the organization. Whereas the portfolio or the program managers will be able to understand all the the portfolios or the organization's strategic objectives at a higher level, in terms of understanding what is the total budget that we have initially indicated and what is the actuals are. And alongside, the resource leader or the resource manager would be able to understand what is the resource allocation looks like, and what is the resource utilization for a specific time period or across a specific project, and also going to help us in terms of assigning the right resources, and help us in terms of giving the right labor forecast as well. As we are talking about actuals, there are different mechanisms through which Polaris PPM in fact records the actuals. One such mechanism would be the zero touch time capture, and also using automated time capture as well, which I'll be covering as we progress in this demonstration. Right. So we are talking about the live data, and we're talking about several data metrics that that the business leader might require or will require. Right. What we have done is all this information can be exported in a different view, in a different graphical view. Based on the business leader's requirement, we would be able to slice and dice the information so that they get to see the information what they need to see, rather than exposing or seeing all the information across the platform. Anything that's recorded within Polaris PPM, it's going to be available, to the business leader, and again, precisely to what they need for. Right. So as you look at, right, well, I'm talking about a solution or a platform which is on a, it's basically a cloud-based platform. I'm using that on a web application on my computer. But what happens if the business leader is in a transit or on travel, how they can catch up with all the ongoing initiatives or the happenings within the organization. So Polaris PPM has does cover that particular component as well. Business leaders can use Polaris PPM on their mobile devices. It could be the Androids, it could be the iPhones or iPads. Even when they are on travel or transit, they can understand what's happening within the organization. It could be in terms of understanding those projects which are being called as high risk, or it could be understanding about those data metrics in terms of understanding how profitable we are in terms of the projects. Are we in line with the estimates? Right, pretty much, whatever, I'll be talking on the web application, it's available on the mobile app as well. Just because it's a mobile app, right, or it's a small device, we haven't made any compromises in terms of the data or in terms of the usability as well. So I'm going to be hopping back to my web application. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a step-by-step approach by giving you a detailed understanding in terms of how different business leaders will be using Polaris PPM. For example, project managers will be able to understand all the initiatives, all the projects within the organization. That's one component of it. But based on your organization needs, if you say, Kamaraj, we don't want to expose all of 41 projects, to all the project managers. We would like to go by a role-based solution where only those projects that they've been aligned to work on, they must see only that. Yes, of course, we can also deliver that because Polaris PPM works on a role and permission based model. Right. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a closer look, across the entire organization and the list of engagements of the project that we're currently dealing with. One important thing for its project managers to understand: what are the key performance indicated for a specific time period in terms of understanding the cost that has incurred, right, for 2020, and the total number of hours that you have spent till date, right? And alongside, PPM does provides a proactive approach in terms of giving those highlighters, or giving those indications to the project manager. Hey, Kamraj, there are close to like 19 different projects have gone beyond the budgets, and there are like 3 different projects which have gone beyond the end date, right? So the project manager can go ahead and understand what are those projects which have been called out as a high risk, that's been recommended by Polaris, and also those projects which are beyond the end date. We will be covering these things in a moment for sure, but alongside, as a project managers, we will be able to understand the other aspects of the entire addressing the other components of the overall solutioning. It could be the resources that needs to be aligned to the right projects. Also, in terms of understanding on day-to-day basis, how the employees or the resources are working across other projects as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to see how these 41 projects are going to be rolling up to the organization objectives. Right. So as you see right here, so currently the organization is dealing with uh, 6 different portfolios, and we will be able to understand what is the key performance indicator for those 6 different portfolios or the organization objectives. And also we can understand which are those. For example, I can understand there are 6 different portfolios right here, and as a portfolio manager or a program manager would be able to understand what are those and to which particular initiative that are getting aligned to. And also another important element, or the metric, for example, we are also trying to give a detailed analysis across different portfolios in terms of understanding the project budgets which have been initially planned, and the actuals that have been recorded by the employees. The same applicable the cost as well, right? What was been initially budgeted for the cost and what are the actuals. We will be revisiting this particular component because this is one of the critical component for a portfolio manager, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to try and understand what are those different engagements that are going to be rolling up to the organizational objectives. As you see right now, there are quite a list of projects which are currently in pipeline. right? So which could in fact roll up to the organizational objectives. So these are the projects can be imported from your existing platform. If, for example, if you're using a CRM in place, or if you're using any project management tool in place, we would be able to import all this information right here, so that you don't have to create anything within the platform. So as we are seeing, there are close to like 16 12 different projects that are in pipeline, and we will be able to understand to which particular strategic initiative that is going to be rolling up to. For example, if I take an example of ERP on-prem, a SaaS migration engagement, it is in fact rolling up to cost reject initiative, which is again like it's going to be again to cost reduction, which is going to be the strategic initiatives, and it's also going to take into a couple of other important things as well, in terms of the hours that we would require to accomplish this particular engagement, and the cost what we would require. And also there are other parameters that can be witnessed right here as project risk or project priorities. So these are some of the key metrics that the project managers can define according to their needs. It could be the different initiative that they can define, or it could be the project risk, or if there are any other elements that you would like to track upon, that's something you can configure on the go, right? So the whole intention is we don't want you to align to our workflow. You tell us your existing workflow, we would be able to accommodate that, right? So as we're talking about the cost initiative has been one of the strategic initiative. This is also going to be rolling up to the other departments within the organization. If you take a look at it, right, for example, finance is one such department. It's tightly working up to the initiative called cost reduction. For example, sales is working towards increasing the revenue for the organization, and for example, operations team is working in terms of providing the visibility as well. Now what we're going to do is, as we see there are close like 2 different projects or engagements in pipeline, based on the available budgets, we are going to be moving this to in flights, or we will be ensuring this particular engagements or the projects will be bucketed to the current financial year. So as we looked at a while ago, I did mention about this is going to be another key component. So based on the budgets and the actuals, I'm able to see there are quite a lot of budgets available. For example, for a mobile adoption, I could see there is close to like $10,000 roughly that's available. For example, for the customer support, I could see close to $8,000 pretty much available in the current financial year. So based on the availability, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it. Okay, based on the budgets which was been initially defined, right, or the hours or the cost, I can go ahead and say, all right, let me go ahead and move, bringing your own device infrastructure, which is again going to be working towards a cost reduction. And also I'll be able to add a few more other projects as well. For example, mobile application as another engagement of the project, which is again less than $10,000 or $10,000, which I can accommodate in the current financial year. The whole intent is we wanted to ensure these are kind of bucketed for the current financial year, so that this can in fact roll up to the organizational objectives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be moving this particular projects. I'll be defining this into a different stage, which can get into a flight mode, or to an in-flight mode, or to a different mode as well altogether. So as we looked at the initial phase, or the roadmap phase, that's something I would like to call. The next the important thing is the different structure that we follow. For example, the initial one is the roadmap one. The second one is the planning. Then we have execution, and we close out. So in the planning phase, this is where the project managers would be able to allocate the resources, right, based on the requirement on a specific project or engagement. And every time whenever there is a new amendment happens, that any new changes, for example, when a project gets moved from one particular stage to another particular stage, Polaris PPM provides a notification to the respective stakeholders. Could be the project manager, the resource leaders, or could be the resources, a notification that could be routed through an email or a mobile push as well, right? So as and when you move them from stage to stage, we would be able to notify them to the respective or the stakeholders within the organization. And likewise, we could also see the list of execution projects which are in flight. So these are the real projects or the in progress projects that the employees are working on, which will be coming in a moment, coming back to this in a moment, right? And we would also be able to see the last component, when you're talking about the project management, is the closeout. These are some of the projects which have been already closed out, and this can be used more for data analysis in future, if you like to come up with a cost or estimated cost. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at those projects in real time, in understand what other projects are being called up by the project manager as critical. or those projects which are not going aligned with the initial budgeted hours or the cost. As you see right now, mobile SSO upgrade is one such project. If you take a look at it, it's been called off as high risk. As a project manager, I need to understand why that is the case, and also I can understand, to which particular initiative this is in fact rolling up to, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down into mobile SSO upgrade and try and understand why this has been called off as a high risk project. So as in when I go to a specific project, I'll be able to understand which particular stage this particular project is, right? Again, Polaris PPM does provides a project complete governance, right? Based on the stage that the projects are, the project manager would be able to define based on the completion of that particular stage. For example, we're talking about initialization phase, as in when the checklists are completed, right? We can say like, hey, this part has been completed, now I'm going to set this to a different stage. So this goes to the planning, and again, from planning there are quite a lot of other things that needs to be taken into consideration. For example, the task structure, it could be the resource planning, or it could be the task assessment, right? Everything, once that has been done, this can be moved into execution, right? So these are something of an of completely configurable parameters, I would say. Based on the project manager's need, you can literally configure your own list of checklists, and you can have the governance within the platform. So once we have the governance scene, like, we can understand the project baselines. For example, what was being initially budgeted. For example, in this particular case, we can see it was initially estimated for 450 hours, and what is the estimated cost. And on a real time, Polaris PPM is going to give me the differences, or a real time understanding what was being initially budgeted or estimated, and what is the actual hours as we are talking, right? And also in terms of understanding in terms of the resource hours which was been initially indicated, and what is that we are allocated right now, right? It's also applicable even for the resource cost as well, right? So pretty much the information what you define within the platform, Polaris PPM does provides on real time, and we'll be able to get a differentiation between the estimated and the real cost or the actuals, right? So the next important thing, as for every project manager, as we're seeing about, there are 41 different projects, and just imagine if there are going to be like two or three project managers alone managing them, understanding what is this project actually does, it's going to be really difficult. So what we have done is we have enabled a view where the project manager can house all the documents that are relevant to this particular project, right? So that the project manager can take a look at it by going to this particular document and understand what is this project is all about, so that it gives you a clear understanding, where we are headed to in terms of completion of this particular project. So let's understand, first thing we want to check, why this particular project is being called off as a high risk project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the task or the work breakdown structure, and Polaris PPM gives a proactive approach in saying me, Kamraj, so this particular task called requirement analysis is in fact is one of the thread, because it's gone beyond the estimated hours which was initially planned. So let's understand why that's the case. I can go ahead and understand what was being initially planned and what are the actual hours as of now. As a project manager, I can try and understand which is the resource was worked on this particular project, and what is the reason that's behind this has been it has been more than what was being initially planned. As I can see from day one, it's been Frank who has been recording the hours, and as and when Frank sees a roadblock, as and when there is a progress, using the zero touch time capture, Frank was able to update at the task tool saying like what was been done and why there is a delay. For example, this particular on 10th of June, there seems to be there is a finalization process that's actually causing a 2 weeks of delay. And for example, another incident on 22nd of June, Frank has in fact called off saying like this is required more hours. The reason being there is additional resources required because there is additional scope in the overall requirement itself, right? So this is something the project manager can take a look at it, why that's the case. Okay, based on the need of the task, we may have to go ahead and add more resources so that these are kind of controlled, or these are something are kind of delivered within the budgeted hours or the budgeted time. So alongside the project manager would also be able to understand the pattern in terms of how the hours in fact spiked from from day one, right? From May 30th, how it started, and if you look at 20th of June, right, we are able to see how the hours have been increased day by day, right? So now what we're going to do is to mitigate this particular challenge of since there is an additional change, there's a change in the overall scope, we have to bring in another resource. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and raise it request to the resource manager, saying like, I would need another resource who can work on this particular project so that we can complete this on time, right? So I'm going to go ahead and raise a request. So first thing first, I have to go ahead and define what kind of resource I would need. For example, I could go ahead and say I would need a project manager or a program manager. So based on your needs, you can in fact have a whole list of roles that we can define based on your organization needs. For now, let me go ahead and select a product manager. And based the moment when I select the role, the system is going to recommend me what is the cost that has been configured when product manager works, what is the cost that's going to be incurred to the organization. But these are more like the indication what Polaris provides, but the actuals are a little different that we'll be covering in a moment, right? Alongside the role, what we're going to do is we are also going to add few more things as part of the resource request. It could be the different skills that I would require that this particular resource to possess, so that this resource can effectively work on this particular project and deliver this on time. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Let me do this again. So alongside the skills, we could also go ahead and group them by different departments, by different employee type or location. Maybe one such scenario, like, this particular project, uh, uh, needs a longer duration of an employee, maybe a salaried employee, right? Rather than going and giving this particular project to assigning this particular project to a contractor, I would like to give this to a full timer because I see this is going to take quite a lot of time, right? So that's one. Or maybe you can also go ahead and define from which particular department I need this particular resource to be working from, right? And likewise, we can define the location. If you have a global organization, you have different branches, right? We can also call out a specific resource from a specific location as well, right? And alongside, what we're going to do is we're going to define what is the duration we would require that this resource to be working on this particular project, and what is the start date and end date, and we can see how many resources we are looking out for. And I can say I can go ahead and define a comment to the resource manager saying like, I would need an FTE to be assigned. And once this is done, of course, this can be triggered, this can be submitted, where the request will be submitted to the resource manager or resource leader, and where the allocation can take place. Or in a different situation, if the project manager also wears multiple hats, where project manager himself will be assigning the resources, that's also pretty much possible. As and when the request is submitted, of course, there would be an email triggered, a notification will be triggered. If it's going to be a resource manager, an email will be triggered saying like, for mobile SSO upgrade, there is a request, there is a resource requested, who should be a product manager and what date it is. But in a conventional product, aligning a resource, it's a tedious process, right? One has to go ahead and understand who is available, have to check their availability, understand what are the roles are, what are their skills are, and it takes quite a lot of effort from the resource manager. What we have done is Polaris PPM does pretty much all of this using the AI algorithms. So we have introduced something called Smart Match, right? So here I could go ahead and define, I'm looking for a resource with all the available metrics what I've defined, and the system is going to give me the recommendations based on the availability, right? So one is we are kind of desired quite a lot of things. We asked about the resource, we did ask about the location and other information, but one important thing which I would just like to bring this back to you. For example, I can also go ahead and define what are the importances that I'm going to provide, right? Of course, I'm talking about the skills, departments, employee types, and location. I can set the importance like, yeah, if the product manager role is available, I'm good with that. I'm not so much considered about the, the department, the location. I can set those importances. So that based on those importances, the AI algorithm which runs at the background, it's going to give us those recommendations. So as I was talking about, the AI within the Polaris PPM is going to do all the heavy lifting, and it's going to give me the details across which is going to be the right resource who will be suitable to be working on this particular project, which is going to take into several things into the consideration. For example, it's going to consider the primary role. It's also taking into account of the skills and also the availability of the resources. And then it's also going to tell me which are the ones which are matching based on what was being initially requested. And I can also go ahead and say, okay, there are a couple of them. Let me go ahead and allocate, burns to this particular project, right? Or just to speed up this work, I can also go ahead and define I would need more resources. I can split the hours to each of these resources so that they can start working on this. right? Or in a different situation, let's say, we don't see this employee, this resource available within the organization. We can in fact go ahead and call this up saying like, we don't have an available resources, we need to hire this particular resources with this particular role, right? And this will be flagged up to the hiring department who does the hiring, so that they'll get a flag saying that Kamraj is asking a resource to be working on this particular project, so that they can hire a new resource so that they can be allocated on this particular project, right? So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to allocate one specific resource, so that as and when I allocate this resource on this particular project, an email notification is going to be triggered to Aaron saying like, Aaron, you're asked to work on this particular project, so that they get a notification in terms of email as well as the mobile push as well, right? And another important thing that something Polaris PPM proactively does, it's providing the it's providing the cost forecast as well. So when we requested a resources for close to like 160 hours, based on the availability, we said like, it's going to be like $13,000 we would require, but based on the availability of the other employees, maybe Baron is a senior more resource within the organization, and it's going to give me the forecast as well, right? So basically, Polaris PPM provides a forecast data for all that can be accounted, and whether we are talking about maybe for internal chargeback within your organization, or it could be the shared services model. We can in fact map all this cost what you're seeing right here. It could be for the capital expenditures, or it could be for the operational expenditures, on the ongoing projects, or in a different scenario. Businesses also use this information for managing their R&D projects or their business, to their engagements or the projects as well, right? So as and when the information has been triggered, so the resource would get an email notification. And as we're talking about the zero touch time capture, there is a Polaris PPM widget which works at the background. It's basically a desktop application which sits at the background and gets pretty much all the updates, all the assignments, right? So this is the employee view. Will be able to understand the allocations that has been done by the project manager. For in case I've been asked to work on mobile SSO project, I can go ahead and see, okay, maybe for today how many hours I'll be working on. I can define that. Let me just pick up another project or a different task. For example, I could go ahead and say, based on my allocations, I can say I have completed, let's say, 5 hours of work today, working on this particular project or task, right? And I kind of, encountered another requirement from the client, saying like, there's a change in the overall scope. In such cases, what I do is, first thing, the project manager has already defined an estimated hour of completion, but as I work with client very closely, right, I got an update saying like, there's a change in the requirement. Maybe we need to redesign some maybe a component of it, right? And I can say, okay, to do the redesigning, we might need another 10 more hours. So I could go ahead and record that within this platform. So one is I was able to record the hours, and also I'm proposing an additional hours that we would require to complete this particular engagement, and also I'm giving a comment. So as and when I do this, a notification gets triggered to the project manager, saying like, which are basically recorded as a smart beats. So these are the smart bits which has been given by the employee using the desktop widget, who have recommended we would need to have a revised estimated dates because of the reason there was a change in design, or it could be something else. So based on the availability, or maybe what I could do is I can go ahead and negotiate the hours what was been initially recommended, or if I feel that yes, this additional hours are making sense to me, maybe go ahead and update this, and this will be captured at your overall project estimates, right? So we are talking about two-way communication. One is the project manager defines the estimates, and once that is done, as the employees work on day-to-day basis using the desktop widget or the desktop tool that Polaris PPM provides, the resources can go ahead and recommend we would need additional more hours, and they can recommend the completion of the work in case if that's been already completed. All right. So now what we're going to do is, as we are talking about, several components, we did looked up the projects, and we did see the other components such as how the projects can be managed within the platform. The next important thing is, as a resource manager, we should be able to go ahead and understand how a resource manager would be able to, help the organization in achieving the overall objectives. As a resource manager, would be able to understand what is the allocation summary looks like, right, which is going to take into consideration of the availability, the over allocation, the time of component which is not available in the market with the other competitors, and also holidays. Based on the other metrics, system is going to say for a specific time period for the month of August, what has been the allocation. As I see, there are close to like 41 resources, but there is only 17 of them who've been allocated. But however, there's an availability of close to 30 FTEs, which is going to be a threat for an organization, right? So we can understand why that is the case, not just looking at from an organization perspective. Polaris PPM gives a detailed analysis across the organization. Maybe if you want to understand by a role, we can understand, okay, let's understand by a specific role. Let's say, a billing manager, how they've been allocated to different projects. Let's say how the Java specialists have been allocated. Again, these informations further can be, defined in a different metrics altogether. Maybe we can understand by the hours. We can also understand this by percentage and also by the FTE as well, right? And this is like one side of the category, or the bifurcation, I would say. We could also understand, maybe if you're talking about a global organization where you have multiple branches across the globe, you want to understand, okay, at United States, how the allocations are, like, how many resources have been allocated, and across the entire year, right? And same applies even for the different departments as well, right? Maybe within the same location you have different departments. Polaris does allows the resource managed to understand from a design department perspective how the allocations are, if there have been any other over allocations, right? So these are some of the indication that PPM does provides proactively, right? And of course, we are not limiting only with this, just to give you another key component. Well, we are talking about those projects which are skilled in nature. Like every project needs a skilled employees needs to be allocated. What Polaris does is it's going to give you a list of availability in terms of their skills that they possess. For example, I'll be able to understand, for example, JavaScript. I'll be able to see, okay, how many employees there who have Java skills as part of their overall skill. And also this view allows them to understand how they've been allocated across other projects. The moment when I move over my cursor, I'm able to see what is the allocation rate looks like, the percentages, and if there have been any over allocation, system does gives those information proactively. And if there are any time off that's been indicated, we are able to pretty much see those information as well, right? So one is, the resource manager will be able to understand by the resource availability across the department. Again, we are able to segregate that by a department role and also by the skills as well, right? So now we are moving to a very interesting, the component or the interesting part of the overall solutioning. Yes, we did speak about, quite a lot of things about budgets, actuals, resources, but these are some of the metrics are kind of available. But what we are going to do is we are going to be exporting all this information to your business intelligence tool. It could be the Power BI, or it could be the Tableaus, and we will be able to give you those information that are only required by a business leader, right? If you're having any other business intelligence tool, we have connectors. Polaris PPM has connectors readily available through which you would be able to export this information and slice and dice the information the way how you want. For example, in this particular scenario, program overview, like we are talking about the different programs or the strategic objectives, we can understand what are those strategic objectives are, and also we'll be able to understand what was been initially budgeted, I mean the budgeted cost versus the actuals. Likewise, we would also be able to understand the hours which was being initially budgeted and the actuals, right? And more importantly, all this information what we're talking about, the cost components, right? And this needs to be accounted very precisely to different categories, right? It could be the capital, or it could be the operational expenditures. The system does captures all those information so that the business leader can get to these details whenever they want. And alongside, we're also talking about those schedules, right? Of course, we're talking about projects which will have, a certain project baselines. If we are going, over the estimates, right? The system is going to proactively going to tell which of those are gone beyond those the overdue dates, right? So again, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at each and every portfolios right here. As in when I move a cursor, I'll be able to understand what was the initial budgets and what is the actuals, and also I'll be able to understand what is the remaining cost as well. And also when I click on a specific engagement, I will be able to understand how much of them have went under a capex and how much has been recorded into an opex expenditure. And alongside, I'll be able to understand what are those underlying projects or engagement that are going to be rolling up to company wide dashboard. If I click on this particular icon, it's going to give me the different uh, the engagements, and also I'll be able to understand whether these engagements are on track or not. I could see pretty much every one of those are kind of overdue projects, right? Likewise, we will be able to understand the similar information at the hours level as well. If you want to understand from a strategic objective level or a portfolio level, I can understand what is the actual hours and the remaining estimated hours as well. Well, this is like one such examples of how the data can be presented to the business leaders. Likewise, there are quite a lot of other uh, the data dashboards that the business manager can take a look at it. For example, this is going to talk about the various engagement that we are currently dealing with. For example, we are talking about uh, these strategic initiatives, for example, cost reduction, improved visibility, increased revenue, and we will be able to understand whether this particular projects have gone beyond our cost, right? Has it gone beyond our overall budgets, budgeted in terms of the hours, and also overall project itself, right? Where we will be able to understand by the engagement or by project, which are the ones which have gone beyond the overall the cost which was being initially defined, wherein I can go ahead and understand this by a specific strategic initiative. I can go into a cost reduction. I can try and understand which of those projects are rolling up to that. I can understand from that particular perspective. Or if I want to understand, maybe from an improved visibility, I can understand those data as well. And across, I'll be able to understand the percentages of the overall projects which have gone beyond the cost, overall budgets, overall hours that have gone beyond the budgets, and overall projects itself, right? So likewise, we could go ahead and understand by initiative perspectives, and now well, we can literally see all those information the way how we want. And moving on to the other dashboards as well, this gives you the details understanding across the resource plans which was been initially planned, which was been planned across the other projects, and also going to get an understanding in terms of the availability by the role, right? And also we'll be able to understand another important component, which are those roles have been or allocated. Of course, we are talking about there are close to like 33 FTEs, but however, I could see billing managers are the ones been over allocated. So this is in fact a major threat for an organization because the allocation is going somewhere wrong. So based on this, the resource manager can take preventive measures so that these resources are being freed up, and those resources who are kind of available can be allocated to those can be shared those particular loads. I think this view gives the more details. For example, by a role specific, by a month, or on a specific year, I can understand their availability and how they have been allocated for a specific time period. And also I'll be able to understand by a role, how they've been allocated, right? Across the hours, and also get an understanding about the over allocation that has been done, right? So the more importantly, as I see, if I go to a specific role for business analyst, I could see Christina and Kimberly are kind of pretty much available, but however, like Burns or like Alexander are kind of completely allocated, right? In such case, what I could do is I can take a call. Maybe I can share the load from the ones who have been completely allocated to the other resources who are available, right? So these are some of the real-time data. That's something the project managers or the business leaders, or could be the resource managers, can take a look at it and do the allocations accordingly, right? So let me just do a quick summarization in terms of what we saw. Of course, as you saw, like Polaris PPM is completely a self-driving solution which gives you 100% real-time data and a comprehensive end-to-end SaaS PPM solution. This in fact delivers quite a lot of insights, such as gives you the real-time actionable insights into all the analytics that we saw a while back, and it in fact covers all the business pulse within the mission control, and this also ensures complete project governance, which you saw a while back in terms of moving from initiation phase to execution phase or closing of the projects. And it's in fact it's going to turn off your chaos into consistency, because we're going to have this checklist that will be maintained, and this is also going to provide you in terms of controlling the overall project cost, right, and help us in terms of understanding the progress, and also going to provide the visibility into the total capex and the opex expenditure as well. And that, of course, I'm sure this also was being covered, which also provides a visibility and allowing all visibility into all projects, so that the project manager can take a look at it before anything could be encountered, right? And of course, we did take a look at it in terms of the optimization, right? We were able to see how smart match is able to in fact capture the hours on a real time basis, using this is also going to help us in terms of minimizing the resource productivity and minimizing the cost. And of course, we did take a look at the time intelligence, that using the smart beats and the zero touch time capture. And we did cover about the foundations of across all the project financials in terms of the tight integrations with your financial platforms to help ensure we are on track to deliver all your organization strategic initiatives on time and in budget. I think by this I conclude my overview, and thank you so much for your time and listening through this demonstration. Thank you so much. Over to you, Curtis.
Awesome. Thanks for the awesome demo, Kamaraj. So we're just going to hop back into the PowerPoint. We're going to finish things off today. So we're going to take a look at everything we saw today, a quick review. Then we're going to take a look at who we are at Polaris. Afterwards, we're going to look at a few of those customer transformations. And then finally, we will end off with that Q&A session. So if there's any questions that popped into your brain during that webinar, feel free to submit them in the question box and we'll get to them in just a couple of minutes here. So at Polaris, we have a platform that is always evolving and it is so configurable. Every piece of this platform can be configured to meet your organization's needs, and that includes size. So whether you are that 10 employee startup or that 1 million employee established organization, our platform can grow and evolve with you. And not only can we grow in size, but we can also grow in location. So we are global and secure on the cloud. We have multiple locations, languages, currencies, time zones, holiday schedules to ensure that no matter where your employees are, they will have a Polaris instance that is set up for their exact specifications. And by being secure and on the cloud, we have a 99.9% uptime. So not only can you access your information when you need it, but we ensure that your information remains your information. We are mobile first, so as we saw with Kamaraj's demo, we built our mobile app from the ground up. We did not sacrifice any functionality. Everything that you need to access in our platform can be found in the palm of your hand. And we use artificial intelligence to make all these processes streamlined and simple. So whether you're that admin or that end user, you'll find artificial intelligence making your life so much easier within our platform. And we are plug and play. So here's just a couple of examples of the out of the box connectors that Polaris supports. Now, by no means is this the exhaustive list. Basically, if there is a platform that has data in it, there's a very good chance that we can get that to Polaris in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's your own homebrew, there is a way that Polaris can communicate so that we ensure that Polaris is that, in fact, that one source of truth for all of your data, and you can get that data where it needs to go. And all of this is possible not only because we have an incredible product, but we also have an incredible team behind that product. Our implementation crew is going to get you on the ground and running in no time, and you will see that ROI in the shortest amount of possible. Our customer success managers or CSMs are dedicated to an account and they're going to know your organization inside and out and they're going to be able to answer any specific questions you may have that are in regard to your company. And we have 24/7 support, so no matter where you are, there will always be someone on the other end of the line. And we have ongoing training. We have things like webinars. We have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to, and it'll actually update you with any product changes or updates and kind of give you tutorials on how to use everything. And we even have a customer forum where you can bounce ideas off of the Replicon and Polaris experts, as well as off each other, and maybe pick up some new tricks, and streamline your processes. And this is all because Replicon has a little bit of experience in the business, to say the least. We have 20 plus years in this industry with 500 team members across the globe. We have 7,800 customers across 70 countries, and we have 42% of our budgets going into R&D to ensure that our product is constantly evolving, growing, and changing with the world around us. Now, as you can see, Polaris has found a home in many different organizations that covered many different use cases, and I think it just really highlights and accentuates the versatility of our platform and goes to show that there really isn't a company that would not benefit from our platform. It really can help you in so many different ways. And here's a couple of examples of that in action. So we had a financial services firm who before, well, their manual processes made it very difficult to manage their portfolios, and this led to inaccurate project scoping and limited their project forecasting, and therefore really slowed down their business. But after implementing Polaris, they had a modern interface with real time visibility. This improved their forecasting on all their portfolio metrics, centralized their solution, and increased their utilization by 5 to 10%. Another example is the enterprise IT services firm, and they had field engineers, and we know field engineers like to do what they want. And well, they were entering data in different ways, in different sources, and they didn't have that single source of truth. And while they were trying to cross reference everything, it led to inaccurate data, and this caused issues with capitalization and chargebacks. But after implementing Polaris, they had a holistic view across all their locations. It gave them that single source of truth that they needed to really have clarity into how their organization was running, created real time actionable data, and finally allowed for big cultural change because no longer were people arguing about which data was correct or relevant. They had all that information displayed to them in a meaningful way, and they made those big decisions with ease and no arguments. And as you saw today, Polaris has so much potential. We can help you with so much. We can help you increase project delivers, increase resource utilization, decrease administrative overhead. The list goes on. Polaris is capable of so much because it is the world's first self driving PPM and it will deliver harmony